Every nation on Earth fields some version of special forces. Not every version is the same. Some countries built around surgical Tier 1 precision, some around deep infiltration, and some around capabilities most governments officially refuse to acknowledge at all. The result is a global ecosystem of elite units shaped by geography, political history, budget, and doctrine that are not interchangeable and cannot be compared on a single scale. But we are going to compare them anyway. Here is every major country's special forces capability explained and compared. The United States, the largest, most funded, and most operationally tested special operations ecosystem on Earth. U.S. Special Operations Command operates Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the Green Berets, the 75th Ranger Regiment, Air Force Combat Controllers, and Pararescue, all under one unified command, GIGN. After 20-plus years of continuous combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, U.S. Special Forces accumulated more real-world data, tested more tactics, and eliminated more high-value targets than any other special operations community in history. The trade-off is scale and bureaucracy. USACOM's size means more interagency coordination, more political oversight, and more compartmentalization than any single nation counterpart. The world's deepest special operations bench, and the most complex to command. The United Kingdom, the original blueprint, where modern special operations doctrine was written. The UK operates the Special Air Service, the Special Boat Service, and the Special Reconnaissance Regiment, three completely distinct units covering direct action, maritime operations, and deep human intelligence gathering. The SAS's 1980 Iranian embassy siege, broadcast live on television, set the global standard for counter-terrorist assault doctrine. Every hostage rescue unit formed after 1980 studied that operation. The trade-off is unit size. The entire SAS regiment fields fewer active operators than a single US Special Forces group. What the UK sacrifices in volume, it compensates with 80 years of institutional experience. The original blueprint, still current edition. Russia. Volume, brutality, and state-sponsored deniability. Russia operates GRU Spetsnaz for military direct action, FSB Alpha and Vimpel for domestic counter-terrorism, and deniable hybrid warfare formations for overseas operations that officially do not involve Russian military personnel. Russia's Special Forces doctrine prioritizes overwhelming force and speed over precision. Operations in Syria and Ukraine demonstrated both their lethality in high-intensity environments and their willingness to operate without the legal constraints that bind Western units. The trade-off is attrition and accountability. Russian special operations have suffered documented casualties significantly higher than Western equivalents in comparable environments. The most feared close-range fighters in conventional war, and the most expendable in their own doctrine. Israel. Tier 1 necessity built from existential threat. Israel operates Sayeret Matkal for deep reconnaissance and Tier 1 counter-terrorism, Shayetet 13 for maritime special operations, Shaldag for Air Force special operations, and Duvdevan for undercover counter-terrorism in civilian environments, all simultaneously active. Operation Entebbe, 1976. 94 hostages in Uganda. Israeli commandos flew 2,500 miles, neutralized the hijackers in 90 seconds, and extracted everyone in under an hour. It remains the most tactically audacious hostage rescue in the history of warfare. The trade-off is geographic concentration. Israel's SF ecosystem is optimized for short-range, high-frequency operations in a defined theater. The most operationally experienced special forces per capita on Earth, and the units born from necessity because losing was never an option. Germany, born from disaster, perfected into precision. GSG-9 was created directly in response to the 1972 Munich Olympic massacre, in which 11 Israeli athletes were killed when Germany had no trained counter-terrorism capability. GSG-9 was the answer to never letting that happen again. In 1977, GSG-9 stormed Lufthansa Flight 181 hijacked to Mogadishu, rescuing 86 hostages in 7 minutes with 0 hostage fatalities. The operation validated the entire counter-terrorism unit model and influenced hostage rescue doctrine worldwide. The trade-off is constitutional restriction. Germany's legal framework places strict limits on military SF domestic deployment, and political scrutiny follows every overseas mission. The precision engineers, operating within the tightest political constraints in NATO. France, the most globally deployed special forces in Europe. France's Special Operations Command, COS, controls GIGN for counter-terrorism, the 1st Marine Infantry Parachute Regiment for deep unconventional warfare in former French territories, and the 13th Parachute Dragoon Regiment for long-range desert reconnaissance. France's 1st Marine Infantry Parachute Regiment has maintained continuous special operations deployments across the Sahel for decades, advising, leading, and directly conducting counter-insurgency operations that most NATO allies have never attempted at that scale. The trade-off is post-colonial complexity. France's deep African engagement reflects strategic interests that make their special forces politically controversial within the countries they operate in. The most globally active European SF, and the most complicated, Les Soldats de l'Ombre. We have covered 6 countries, from the largest SF ecosystem ever built to the most globally deployed in Europe. The next 4 may surprise you. Which country do you think has the best balance of global reach and raw operational quality? Drop your answer in the comments, hit subscribe, and let's finish the top 4. Australia, punching well above its weight. And with the receipts to prove it, Australia's Special Operations Command fields the SASR, modelled directly on the British SAS, and the 2nd Commando Regiment, giving Australia simultaneous Tier 1 and Tier 2 capability that most nations 3 times its size do not possess. Australia's SASR accumulated a combat record in Afghanistan, described by American and British commanders as among the most effective small unit contributions to the coalition, and generated one of the most significant war crimes investigations any Western SF unit has faced. The trade-off is scale and specialization. Australian SF is exceptional but small, optimized for Indo-Pacific regional operations, the quiet professionals of the Southern Hemisphere, capable, controversial, and battle-hardened. Canada, the most secretive Tier 1 force in NATO, and possibly the most underrated. Joint Task Force 2 is Canada's primary Tier 1 counter-terrorism unit. The entire system operates under classifications so thorough that most Canadians have never seen a confirmed operational photograph of JTF-2 in action. During the Afghanistan campaign, JTF-2 reportedly accumulated one of the highest confirmed kill-to-operator ratios of any coalition unit in theatre, a record the Canadian government has never officially acknowledged, confirmed, or denied. The trade-off is size and political awkwardness. JTF-2 is one of the smallest Tier 1 units in NATO. Canada's transparent political culture makes a deeply classified unit structurally uncomfortable and strategically valuable. The shadow force of the North. Poland, NATO's most aggressive rising special forces power. Poland operates GROM as its primary Tier 1 direct action and counter-terrorism unit, alongside NIL for signals intelligence special operations, both modelled explicitly on British SAS and US Delta Force selection standards. GROM participated in the 1994 Haiti intervention alongside US Special Forces and accumulated a combat record in Iraq and Afghanistan that led American commanders to request Polish GROM operators for joint Tier 1 operations, a distinction very few non-Anglophone units have ever earned. The trade-off is scale and budget, though both are changing fast. Poland's defense spending is climbing dramatically post-2022. Their motivation is not abstract doctrine. They share a border with Russia, the fastest rising special forces capability in NATO, driven by geography. Norway, the Arctic specialists who helped write the book on cold weather special operations. Norway operates the Forsvarets Special Commando, FSK, as its primary special forces unit and the Marine Jägerkommando, MJK, as its maritime special operations force. Both units treat Arctic survival not as a bonus skill, but as a baseline operational requirement. Norway's MJK is one of the only maritime special forces units on Earth that regularly trains for combat diving operations in sub-zero Arctic water temperatures, a capability that most maritime SOF units in warmer climate nations cannot replicate. The trade-off is domain specificity. Norwegian SF is maximum capability in Arctic, maritime, and cold weather environments, and less applicable in desert or jungle theaters. The world's finest cold weather warriors, exactly where they were built to fight. 10 countries. 10 completely different answers to the same fundamental problem. How do you solve what conventional forces cannot? The United States buys operational depth. Israel buys existential necessity. Russia buys volume. Norway buys Arctic mastery. No single approach is universally superior. Each reflects the threat environment that built it. Which country do you think has the most capable special forces? Drop your take in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe, and check out our other tactical deep dives on screen. See you in the next one.